Look what the
ages
have done to me.
We want to get back to the ocean.
Everything I do is so dramatic and flamboyant. It just makes me want to set myself on fire.
Hey guys, James here again with another Civ 6 guide, and today I'm going to be discussing the Dramatic Ages mode, which was released as part of the Byzantium and Gaul pack. In this mode, era changes are more impactful than ever, giving you more opportunities to rise and fall. It'll be bold, dramatic. So let's dive into this. In Dramatic Ages mode, a number of changes are made to the age mechanics. First, while you'll start in a normal age, you actually won't be able to enter normal or heroic ages anymore. Now, in each era there's only one threshold you need to hit, which separates you from a golden or dark age.
Sometimes may be good, sometimes may be shit.
Additionally, dedications which you select at the start of each age are no longer available. Instead, many of these dedications are reworked into powerful golden or dark age policy cards, which become available to you and can be slotted into a wildcard policy slot. I'll dive into some of the policy cards later. You still earn an era score in the same ways you would in a normal game, but since there are no longer dedications which give you additional era score, they instead added two other methods to consistently earn points. First is that you get one era score for each civic and tech which you complete. Second, you'll get one era score for each additional promotion after a unit's first promotion. In the ancient era, the threshold to reach a golden age in the classical era will always be 25. After that, the threshold required will be calculated based on a few factors, such as how many non-capital cities you have when the era changed, and the number of past golden or dark ages you've had. Golden ages are largely still the same as before. However, you'll now have access to golden age policies, and again, many of the former golden age dedications were reworked into these policies, such as monumentality and reform the coinage. Having these available as policies allows you more flexibility with your golden age bonuses. I won't dive into all of the golden age policies, but I did want to bring attention to a few of them here. 2 arms is one which is interesting for this mode because it boosts the amount of XP your units get, which can in turn lead to more era score from promotions. Similarly, cards which boost your science and culture are always good for gaining era score quicker as well. Then, policies like Mandela State, Sakdina, and Solidarity can increase the amount of loyalty pressure exerted by your cities, which can be useful if you find yourself wanting to try and passively convert free cities to your side. There's a bunch of other ones which can be quite powerful depending on your game plan and situation, so definitely try different ones out as you play. Another thing to note about Golden Age is that you can exert more loyalty per citizen than the usual 1.5 in a standard game. Each extra point of era score will grant an additional 5% pressure increase per citizen, but once it hits a 50% bonus, the returns will begin to diminish. I'm going to be honest, based on some testing in my games and me trying to calculate the numbers manually, I'm not entirely sure how the math here works, but really, the main takeaway here is that, unlike standard games, going over the threshold can actually be helpful for you. Even so, when possible, it may be best to save some era score for later because dark ages are far more impactful in this mode. In a bad way. So dark ages have been changed as well, with the biggest change being that once you enter a dark age, a percentage of your cities will instantly rebel and become a free city. The number of cities which revolt will increase based on difficulty, while AI cities lost will decrease with difficulty. It will be rounded to the nearest number, with at least one non-capital city rebelling. The cities which rebel will be the ones with the lowest loyalty pressure, which you can identify easily here in the City Report tab. Free cities will now exert loyalty pressure too, not only making them hard to swing to your side naturally, but also making it so that they can cause other cities to revolt as well. This makes Dark Ages extremely dangerous, and it's not uncommon to see a civ get wiped out because their cities, including their capital, get flipped in a big chain reaction.
I'm Spartacus! I'm Spartacus! I'm Spartacus! I'm Spartacus!
I'm not exactly sure why, but it seems loyalty is calculated differently in Dark Ages too. I had instances where I was getting more than the normal 0.5 loyalty pressure per citizen, but I didn't notice anything in the code or Civlopedia which would indicate why. If you know why, definitely let me know down below. As for Dark Age policies, a number of them have been modified or removed, and some new ones were added as well. Like before, these can be very powerful, but will also have some downsides. I won't dive into all of them, but again, I want to recognize a few that I found pretty helpful. Elite Forces was buffed in this mode with the maintenance cost reduced. This can help with getting more promotions and era score. Then you have cards like Decentralization and Despotic Paternalism, which can help with any of the potential loyalty problems you might face in a Dark Age. And of course you have cards which give you bonus science, which are very useful for this mode. Again, there are a lot of options here, so definitely try different cards out and see what might be helpful for your situation. So now, let's dive more into strategy and some tips for the mode. First big tip is to make sure you have a large standing army and try your best to keep them upgraded to your latest technology. Having a strong army is important because you'll want to capture free cities which pop up, whether from opposing civs or those that rebelled from your rule. When cities flip into free cities, they'll spawn with the latest technology units the original civ had, so keeping your troops up to date is pretty important. Not only that, more units means more potential promotions and therefore more era score. War in general is just useful in this mode as there are a number of historic moments you can obtain which will help you get into golden ages. Another tip is to grow your population and settle cities closer together. This can help with potential loyalty issues since loyalty is exerted per citizen and based on distance. There are plenty of policies and improvements which increase food, and chopping resources for a population boost can be helpful in a pinch. I mentioned this already, but if you find yourself likely to enter a dark age, definitely monitor the city report tab or the loyalty lens so you're aware of which cities are going to flip. That way you can move troops into position quickly to recapture these cities. Just make sure you have ways to keep the cities loyal. A small thing you can do also related to this is to swap tiles from cities which are going to flip, just as a way to keep important resources to yourself. You'll also want to make sure you don't build walls in cities which are likely to flip, as this makes them more of a pain for you to take back. If you have the time and the resources to do so, it might not even be a bad idea to settle a couple of suboptimal extra cities prior to the age change. That way, these new cities will be the ones to flip, and you can keep your better cities while also relieving some of the loyalty pressure. Loyalty pressure can be difficult to deal with though, sometimes even in golden ages. Because of this, it may be helpful to raise cities rather than recapture them as a way to relieve pressure. This can be particularly true if you find a block of high population free cities which might be difficult to hold. These big blocks of free cities can be pretty dangerous too, as they might spawn a lot of units. If you find yourself safely in a golden age, it may be worth it to save promotions or completing techs and civics for the next age. Sure, you can always get the extra loyalty bonus, but it may not always be that useful, really depending on how your neighbors are doing. Of course, wildcard policy slots are extra useful here, as golden and dark age policies must be placed in one. Because of this, certain governments, like monarchy, democracy, and fascism, might be better suited to take advantage of these policies. Forbidden Palace is a useful wonder for the wildcard slot, and Terracotta Army is another good one as it grants all of your land units a free promotion. Taj Mahal is also a decent wonder for the additional era score. Greece's civilization bonus grants an additional wildcard slot, and Georgia was modified in this mode to grant an additional slot when in a golden age. Of course, civs and leaders with loyalty related effects like Tokugawa Japan, Lautaro Mapuche, and Eleanor of Aki 10 make for solid choices as well. Of course, there's Amani with the emissary upgrade, which can be helpful to give loyalty issues to enemies. On higher difficulties, you may want to consider turtling in the first age or even the first few ages, staying on one or just a few cities and purposefully getting dark ages. That way you can focus on building up your capital and army. Maybe consider creating and saving a settler or two to immediately settle once the age changes. This in turn also makes getting a golden age in subsequent eras easier, and since higher difficulty AI tend to be able to get the first golden age without much trouble, this puts you in a better position to swoop in and take any free cities once your neighbors do enter a dark age. Unfortunately, there is going to be some luck involved in this strategy and with the mode overall, as you won't always know the type of age your neighbors will go into, but just remember that everyone is affected by the dramatic ages, and you'll want to take advantage when they do eventually go into a dark age. Finally, and this should be pretty obvious, make sure you learn and understand the different historic moments and ways to earn era score. I suggest checking out the Real Era Tracker mod, which provides a list of unique and repeatable historic moments. And so here are my final thoughts. While I think the idea of the mode is pretty interesting, as I like the idea of having to quell uprisings when your civ enters dark times, I have to say that the execution makes it probably my least favorite of the extra game modes. It's definitely quite a challenge though, and if you find yourself bored with the normal game, I think it's definitely one you can experiment with. If you find yourself having trouble with the mode, definitely try knocking the difficulty down, or perhaps playing on a slower game speed. But that's pretty much all I have this time. Let me know if you have any other thoughts or tips for the mode. Otherwise, if you enjoyed, click some of those buttons down below, and I hope you have a great rest of your day. Peace.